welcome to Dave's Think Tank. Today I'm working on a huge project. Adding a video player to the Flash Gordon to play videos on a continuous loop. This project really is huge. There are several steps. Each one is going to be complicated. Each one is going to be a learning experience. I know they were for me. I should point out you can likely buy this exact setup online, designed and ready to plug into your pinball. So, why do it yourself? The pre-built cost is about $300 US, where mine cost only $130, less than half. However, after seeing what's involved, you may decide the added cost is worth it. And I should just briefly discuss why this project is going to be as difficult as you will soon find it to be. This project is going to combine several elements: a computer circuit board, selecting one of many available operating systems for that circuit board, a third-party miniature display for the computer, the software to control the display, a software video program to read videos and write them to the display, and customized software changes to all of the above. Now, to complicate things further, people online use a program called OMX Player to run the videos. But OMX Player is no longer supported by the circuit board manufacturer, and their operating systems have not been able to run it for several years now. It seems like no one has been able to come up with a suitable alternative, so you need to get an old version of the operating system and find ways to keep it compatible with your newly purchased equipment. I tried several online instruction sets, each of which covers at most half of the requirements for this project, and 3 weeks later I finally have a combination that works. Step 1. Let's get started with your shopping list. Number 1, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi 0WH circuit board. If you don't know, the Raspberry Pi is a full computer on a palm-sized circuit board designed to be used in electronics projects. The WH designation indicates it can connect to Wi-Fi, and the H means it already has one of these headers soldered on. For an extra $1.50, save yourself the trouble of soldering 40 pins. Second, you need a display. I bought a Waveshare 2.8-inch DPI LCD screen. Waveshare has a lot of screens for the Raspberry Pi in a variety of sizes from 1 inch to 9 inches. Each one has its own set of instructions for setting it up. Just quickly looking through them, I don't think the Looper program will work on any but the DPI versions. These come in 2.8-inch, 3.5, 4, 5, and 7-inch models. Next, you need a microSD card to be your computer's internal memory, and a microSD card reader-writer to be used to communicate with your home computer. For external memory, you also need a USB drive, and then you need a whole bunch of cables and connectors. You need a phone charger. It should be 5 volt, 2.4 amps minimum. You can get a magnifying glass so you can find the amperage written right in on here. And finally, you're going to need a home computer. There's also a list of things here you may find you need if your project goes in an unexpected direction. Hopefully, like me, you have a lot of this stuff from old projects lying around the house in drawers to help keep the costs down. Step 2. Install the operating system and set up the video looper. Now we need to get an operating system as well as a software to run our video in a continuous loop. There's a site in Germany that has conveniently put all this in one place. Just go to videolooper.de, find the latest version, and click on it to download. Then be patient. It will eventually download, but it may take a while to even start. This is going to download a zip file to your computer, which should automatically unzip. When it's done, you should find a file called video_looper_v2.6.img. This is a disk image of the operating system and all the required software for the next step. We need to create a boot disk on the microSD card, so place the card in the card reader and place the reader in an available USB port on your computer. Now we need a program which is able to interpret the file you just downloaded from Germany and make a boot disk out of it. Go to www.raspberrypi.com/software. Click on Download for Mac OS or whatever is appropriate for your home computer. Once that's downloaded, click on the downloaded file, which should be called imager_1.8.4.dmg. A window should pop up on your screen. Click on the first box marked Raspberry Pi Imager.app. Now, in the three boxes, choose Raspberry Pi 0 from the first, Custom from the second, and select the earlier file video looper v2.6.img. Then in the third box, identify your microSD card, which is probably just called untitled volume. Whatever you identify here is going to be deleted and reformatted, so be sure to get this right. Next, click on Next. No to customization, yes to erase the existing data, and again, be sure you've selected the microSD card and not anything else. Enter your home computer's password, answer any other questions they have, and wait. When it's complete, your microSD card will be renamed Boot and will contain all the software for this step of the project. Now you need to edit one of the files to work with the Waveshare display. The microSD card was probably closed at the end of the last step. If so, pull it out and plug it back in again to activate it. Now, using Finder or whatever you use to look at the directory structure, find the file video_looper.ini and edit it using a text editor. Find a line that begins with extra_args about a page up from the end of the file. You need to add the command --aspect--mode fill to the end of this line. This is going to center your video by eliminating a slim margin on either side, but eliminating the black bars that would otherwise appear at the top and bottom in order to fill the entire Waveshare screen. Step 3. Install the Waveshare display software. Connect the microSD card to your home computer, if it's not still connected. We need to get some information to modify one of the files. So go to www.waveshare.com/wiki/main_page. This page includes a list of all the displays Waveshare produces. Find your display in the long list. In my case, it's 2.8-inch DPI LCD. Click and it takes you to a page with a set of instructions. If you have a different display, hopefully the instructions are similar to what I'm about to outline. As far as I can tell, these instructions will only work with Waveshare displays designated as DPI. For my display, there are two sets of instructions, one titled Raspberry Pi OS Bookworm and Bullseye, and the other Raspberry Pi OS Buster and Ubuntu. You now need to know that the operating system we installed in the last step is based on Raspberry Pi OS Buster. So go to this set of instructions. There are several lines of code identified. Copy them and go to the microSD card and find a file called config.txt. Use your text editor to edit it. Go to the end of the file and paste the copied lines at the very end. It's also a good computer form to add a comment to describe what you're doing. Comment lines start with a hashtag sign, so add a line before the new lines and type hashtag enable Waveshare 2.8-inch DPI LCD screen. Now go to the end of the file and add this line to orient the video correctly. Display_rotate equals 3. And a comment line can be helpful. To explain what you did to future users, you can add a line, hashtag rotate video by 90 degrees times value. And this will ensure the screen has the proper orientation. If for your purposes you want a different orientation, you can set display_rotate to 0, 1, 2, or 3 for 0, 90, 180, or 270 degrees. Now save the file. Next, download the DTBO files by clicking on the link in the Waveshare instructions. Extract the zipped files and copy them into the directory named Overlays. Now you can eject the microSD card and remove it from your home computer. Step 4. Set up and run the Raspberry Pi with the Waveshare screen. So first, insert the microSD card into the Raspberry Pi. Carefully line it up and press it into place. Then connect the Waveshare screen to the 40-pin GPIO connector. Now this can be connected directly, but we're not going to do that. We're going to use a ribbon cable. And this ribbon cable, I just found out, isn't going to work. It's designed in such a way that the pins on it don't extend out far enough to fit into the connector on the Waveshare. So what we're going to do, we're going to substitute this extra header. I'm going to use that to connect to the Waveshare. Press it down in carefully. There. And this cable. And the cable should extend away from the display. Don't extend it over the display. There we go. And the other end goes into the Raspberry Pi. And again, it extends away from the Pi, not over top of it. Don't get it backwards. Okay. Now we have USB adapter cable. This is going to go into the inner connector on the Raspberry Pi. And we plug the USB drive into that. Now we have a power cable, and it is going to go into the outer connector. There we go. And the other end goes into our power adapter or phone charger. And this again should be 5-volt converter producing at least 2.4 amps. Well, as I said earlier, every step of this is a learning experience. I've just learned that the Waveshare display is refusing to work with a cable. It works plugged in directly to the Pi. It will not work with a cable, and I've checked all 40 pins. There seems to be a connection from the Pi to the Waveshare through the cable, but it won't run. So I have to change my plans a bit. No cable. The Pi is plugged directly into the Waveshare, and I'm going to have to change the display underscore rotate equals 3. I think it's going to have to be equal to 1 so that these wires are going to be heading in the right direction, but we'll get to that. And the other thing that's going to happen, I'm going to have an extension cord on this, so consider that. We're going to move on. I plugged the phone charger into the wall. You push the button, if you have a button on this, to start the display. It takes a moment to power up. But eventually, you see that flashing cursor? Just like Samuel L. Jackson in Jurassic Park, you know it's working.
It's okay. Look, see that? It's on. It worked.
Messages should begin scrolling up the screen very soon. There they go.
It's a unit system. I know this.
You can just ignore them. And eventually you're going to see a countdown starting at 5. Here we go. Followed by your videos. And it's possible you might also see a message that says insert USB drive with compatible movies. That means there's a problem with your USB drive, and check that you have compatible video formats, any of AVI, MOV, MKV, MP4 or M4V, and make sure they're in the root directory. Step 5. If you've had problems up to this point, and let's face it, how could you not? First, check the websites we used earlier for any suggestions. You can also look at a website called dietpi.com for information on the operating system, since the videolooper.de setup we used is based on this operating system. There's also github.com for help with the OMX player. Step 6. Logging onto the Raspberry Pi and possible changes. You may find you need to make additional changes, and these can be made on the Raspberry Pi without removing the microSD card to your home computer. You just may need a magnifying glass to do it. But here's how. First of all, you need to remove the USB key. And you need to plug in a keyboard. Okay, now turn it on. There it goes. I don't know if you can make out anything that it says here. It's going to eventually say insert USB drive with compatible movies. So at this point you hit escape on the keyboard and it gives you a prompt here. What's it say? Please hit return to log in. So we're going to have to log in. We hit return. It's asking for a login ID. The login ID is the one set by the fellows in Germany. They've set it to Pi, P-I, enter. And the password that they have set is video. So I've already gone through this and changed the password. Okay, and it goes through the video looper login. Okay, now what we want to do, you want to do what I did, which is change your password. So you type PASSWD, enter. And it's going to ask you for your current password. You type that in. It asks you for a new password, and I think you asked to repeat it. And how do I break out of here? Okay, so I've broken out of there. Some of the other things you may want to do. Okay, you want to type in sudo dietpi-config. That's sudo dietpi. Is that, yes, dash CONFIG. And this should put us into a program. What's it doing? Oh, type the password. Okay. To go in there, they want you to type your password. Okay, type your password and enter. And you get a program. And what you want to do in here, you want to go to number 5, language/regional options. Oops. 3, 4, 5. You do use the arrow keys to scroll around here. Language and regional options, and you probably want to change your time zone. The time zone and the keyboard are set for these guys in Germany, so you want to change them to probably America/Toronto in my case, and to a US keyboard in my case. And once you're happy with everything, use the keys to move around, to go to back, and enter. Okay, so you can edit a few other things. Oh, by the way, sudo, S-U-D-O, it's a Unix command that's used in just about every line entry for some reason. So we just used sudo dietpi-config to run the dietpi configuration program. To edit basic operating system settings, you type sudo sudo nano nano /boot/config.txt. Okay, so let's make this change. Sudo sudo nano nano /boot/config.txt. Here's our file, and we'll scroll down to the very bottom. We added this as the last line. Display_rotate equals 3. Change that to display_rotate equals 1. Control X to exit. Use modified buffer, yes. Y for yes. And use the same name to save it. Enter. There, that should be done. Now let's try sudo reboot to reboot and see what we get. There's our cursor at the bottom now. And there we go. The screen has been rotated 180 degrees. To edit the video looper instructions, we've edited this before. Sudo nano /boot /video_looper.ini and make your edits, and you can change that extra _args in here, and you can check out the github.com/popcornmix/omxplayer #synopsis for additional useful OMX player instructions. There were some I could not get to work, but I got that --aspect-mode working to get rid of the black borders at the top and bottom of the screen. And again, Control X to exit, Y to say yes, and Enter to accept the save file name. And a couple more useful instructions are sudo halt to shut down the computer and sudo reboot to reboot the computer. So you can explore online for more useful Raspberry Pi instructions. That step 6 was kind of a mess, so sorry about that. Hopefully you don't have to do any of it. Maybe changing the password is a good idea. The main thing to get out of that is the login ID is Pi and the password is video. Anyway, on to step 7, editing your own video. First, find a decent video editor. I used iMovie since it's free with my computer. Edit your clips for a 4:3 screen. Try more close-ups as the screen is very small. For action scenes, you may have to chase the action around the screen using, for example, Ken Burns style cropping, if your editor supports that. By default, videos will run in alphabetical order. Rename files starting with a number to control the order. And be aware that there's a black gap between clips. So to avoid this, it's best to combine all clips into a single file. If your pinball is movie themed, there are likely video clips from the film available on YouTube. To download them to your computer, go to YouTube. Search for Flash Gordon movie clips or the appropriate film title. Select a clip. To download it to your computer, pause the clip and click on the top line URL. Change the word YouTube to SS YouTube and hit enter. This takes you to a download screen. Click on Download MP4 720 when it's displayed. The clip should be copied to your computer. Now, use your video editor to cut down and combine the clips, keeping only the parts you want. Your original movie was likely widescreen, which is 21.6 by 9, quite a bit larger than the standard video editor size of 16 by 9. So you're going to lose some of the width of the film. But then when it goes onto your Waveshare screen, it's reduced again to 4:3, losing more width. Edit your clips keeping this in mind. The extra _args command we modified earlier ensures the center of your video will be displayed, eliminating a strip from the left and the right. Try keeping the action right in the center. You may need to go back and re-edit a couple of times to get everything you want on the screen. Now, just for the Flash Gordon, the movie starts out with a series of panels from the comic books, but in order to fill the screen, they stretched them sideways. to cover this up, they have the clips go by in rapid succession, but if you slow it down, everyone looks really fat. So to use these clips, the first thing you want to do is compress them back down. I used a free online service called onlineconverter.com/resize-video. Select width and height fixed, set to 1280 by 960. And this produces a 4x3 clip that's perfect for the Waveshare. Then use your video editor to slow down the faster clips to 25% or less. Now copy the edited clips to your USB drive and attach it to the Raspberry Pi. Step 8. We're finally going to install the Raspberry Pi into the pinball machine. Hopefully. What I have here, this is a plastic on the playfield. It has a clear window in it that looks into, it looks on a photo of Ming the Merciless. So I want to take that out. I want to replace it with the Raspberry Pi. And as you can see, this is the perfect size to just fit on that window. So I have not looked into how I'm going to do that yet. But I'm going to take this off, see what I find underneath, and see what I think is a good way to do that. Have to take these nuts off. This, by the way, is a 5/16 socket. I took this from an old ratchet set and have permanently dedicated it to this purpose. So let's keep going here. By the way, it's a good idea to have an ashtray. I don't smoke, but I have an ashtray here for the purpose of holding all these nuts in one place. Okay, that plastic is off, and this is the plastic of Ming underneath. So we have to take this one off. So keep track of all the little nuts and bolts and things that you've taken out. But here's what I've got. I've got a big empty space here right underneath where I want the Raspberry Pi to go. So I'm picturing building up some 2x2 inch support that will go behind it, and or 3x3 inch, whatever seems appropriate, and hopefully get it to the right height and hold it in place. So I'll let you know how that goes. Here's a secondary project I wanted to do while I had this open. I have a Ming target over here, and it's very dark. You can hardly see it, and plus it's backlit, so it's very difficult to see. Put in a spotlight here and put it on a, it's supposed to attach to the play field, but it's way up in the air, so I put a little pillar here for it and tethered the pillar, and a couple of wires going into one of the lights inside, and now that'll light up my Ming target. Okay, so the plastic with the window, it goes up parallel to this ramp, so I was able to make a couple of marks here parallel to where the window is. I was able to do some measurements of how high that is, some distances here and there. I've done a lot of math, and hopefully some of it's correct. I need to find some materials I can work with, and I'll get back to you when I've got something built. So this is what I've come up with. The base here is a piece of wood. It's 3 5/8 by 2 3/8 by 1/4 inch thick. I've made a block here, a supporting block out of styrofoam that is 2.5 inches wide by 2 3/8 deep, and on the front it is a 1/2 inch height, and on the back 13/16 inch height. On top of that, I have a couple layers of anti-static foam. The nice thing about this is very soft and compressible. It's going to push the display up against the plastic window and hold it tight. And these are, of course, 2.5 by 2 3/8 to match the rest of it. And it's all held together with double-sided duct tape. So what I plan to do, put a couple of holes here. I can put this in and screw it down, hold it in place, and then it's just a matter of putting the Raspberry Pi and display on top of this. And another nice thing about this foam, when the 40 pins of the Raspberry Pi sit on here, it will not move, will not budge a bit. So next thing is to install this and install the Raspberry Pi on top of it. Okay, you can see I've attached my construction to the playfield with screws. The Raspberry Pi and the display sit on top. The cables come out the top, out the upper end, and work their way around and through the opening into the cabinet below. And the 40 GPIO solders hold it quite well against the padding here. So find the perfect spot in the window by just placing the window over top and then making final adjustments, finding just the perfect spot. I've marked the final spot with a bit of masking tape here, so if I ever have to pull it off and do something with it, I can get it back in the right place right away. Yeah, you might need, I found I needed a little bit of masking tape right here. Some of the light was coming through from under the playfield, so, but just that tiny bit of masking tape and everything should be fine. So put the plastic in place and screw it down with the plastic caps. So this is what it looks like inside. The cables extend down from here. Be sure to keep them away from any machinery. The power cable needs to be long enough to reach a source of power and allow free movement of the playfield. So you may need an extension cable. A USB extension cable, if you're going to use one, should be a power cable and not a data cable. Now we have to decide, how are we going to power this? This cable requires a 5-volt source. There are 5-volt sources in the back box, and theoretically you can run an extension cable up into there, attach a connector to a 5-volt source and a ground source, and this would be up and running. I've not done that, and I feel I can't really advise you how to do that. The other way to get this up and running, this requires a 120-volt source. And there are 120-volt sources available in the cabinet. Now, if you're familiar with your pinball cabinet, you know that there's a power outlet over here, which we could plug this into, and I have plugged it in, and it does work that way. Unfortunately, there's no way to turn it off, because this is before the power switch. So the power comes through here, it goes through the power switch here, goes through yellow and blue lines over to the transformer over here, and what we want to do is cut into those yellow and blue lines. Now, to make it even easier for the Flash Gordon, it has a separate power setup for the strobe light, and a separate pair of yellow and blue wires come over here into this small transformer. You can unplug this. The small transformer operates the strobe, supplies power to the strobe. which probably doesn't even exist anymore. So what we can do is we can cut off these yellow-blue wires here and install a new power outlet in the cabinet. So here's the power outlet that I have acquired. When I cut those yellow and blue wires and they come into this box, they will attach one on this side, one on this side. And the outgoing yellow-blue wires would connect here and here. Now, because I'm using the smaller transformer, using the strobe power source, there are no outgoing wires, so I just have a yellow and a blue coming into here. I'll also attach a green wire to a ground source. Then this is attached to the side of the cabinet. This goes over top. We plug in our device and we're done. Let's just take a quick look at stranded wire and how to properly attach it. What we're going to do, we're going to cut this down to the wire at about 1 inch. This is AWG 14, yep, okay. And strip this back about 1/2 inch. Exposing that much. Twist it. Now, just wrap it around there. Tighten it. And you got a perfect connection. And there you have it. You can see how the yellow wire is making a perfect connection with this approach. I just noticed that these wires come down right over top of the transformer. And you do not want your USB drive resting on top of the transformer. So make sure you tether it up high. Make sure it's out of the way of anything mechanical and anything electrical. And the job is done. Did I mention before, when you're working on the power lines, be sure to unplug the machine? I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but I meant to, and yeah, good practice. Anyway, the job is done. I have a power box attached to the side here, very firmly. I have the video looper is plugged in, and I don't know if you can see the blue and yellow wires go in there. There's also a ground wire that I've attached over to the ground over here on the power board. And I've tried it out. It actually works. So let's take a look.
This way, Flash! Come on! Gordon's alive! Look out, Flash!
Step 9. Keep copies of everything you downloaded for this project in case it's no longer available online when you need it. Something is bound to happen 5 or 10 years from now, and you'll be glad you did. The internet is constantly changing, and there's no reason to believe that any of this information will still be there or that any of it will work the same way it does now. Be sure to keep copies of the imager downloaded from Raspberry Pi, the video looper from the German website, the DPIO files from the Waveshare website, and all the lines added to the various files, including any changes you had to do in order to make it work. Keep a copy of these instructions as well. Keep copies of all your video files, maybe even this video. Keep it all on your regular computer as part of your regular backup routine, but also keep it in a separate directory on the USB drive and maybe even on the microSD card. The next guy who owns the machine will thank you. Step 10. Next steps. There are a couple of things I didn't accomplish with this project. For one thing, the startup screen displays a bunch of lines scrolling up the page. There's probably a way to eliminate that. I found a number of suggestions online, but they all require multiple changes to multiple files, and I don't know which, if any, are going to work with my setup. Rather than disturb a delicate balance, I left this alone. If you find something that works, maybe you'd enter it in the comments. Another thing I didn't accomplish, there's a problem with every Raspberry Pi implementation, and that is, how do you turn it off? And the subsequent issue to this is, how do you turn it back on? Our solution to this is to just turn it off and on with the power switch on the Pinball. There's no issue in turning it on this way, that's fine, but plenty of people will tell you not to turn it off this way. The Raspberry Pi is a computer, and just like shutting down your home computer, you don't just unplug it. Theoretically, you could interrupt some important file maintenance operation and cause the computer to crash and possibly not boot up again. But, worst case scenario, your microSD card could be corrupted, so you pull out the microSD and reprogram it, repeating all the steps to set it up again. Absolute worst case scenario, maybe you need to buy a new microSD card. And in the absolute worst case, maybe you need to watch this video again. A better way to shut it down would be to connect it to your Wi-Fi and get an app on your phone that can shut it down remotely before turning off the Pinball. Theoretically, this can be done, but I didn't get Wi-Fi working with this setup. I was able to get Wi-Fi working with other operating systems, but I couldn't get video looping working with any of them. Again, maybe one of you will figure it out, and if you do, please enter the solution in the comments below. I spoke to people who sell these systems, and they use the same approach. Just turn it off and on with the power switch. I'm told they've had very few people come back to them with issues. Not zero, but few. And even if it was possible to turn it off over Wi-Fi, I'm pretty sure nobody but me would ever do it in this house. And just having the option available would make me feel bad when I didn't use it either. Okay, that should get you started on your own video project. Let me know how it goes. I don't think it's time for a game today, so here's a bonus to get you started. The fully edited opening sequence of comic book panels.
Very roughly, 14 seconds.
Open fire! All weapons!
Gordon's alive? What a damn nuisance! Look out, Flash!
Pathetic earthlings.